If being rich or being financially free is your dream, is a thing that you've been pursuing each and every time in this country of Kenya, now these are the towns that really resonate well with you. These are the towns that you can migrate to. Or if you're already in either of these towns that I'm going to discuss with you, stick around, do that what is appropriate, and then at the end of the day, you can achieve that what you've been looking for. Guess what? I've been lucky enough to visit all these towns, so I'm giving you the first-hand information. I'm going to explain to you, considering some factors like what are the life expenses in those towns, what are the security in those towns, what are like availability, the cost of living, and all those kind of things. So I'm gonna be a little bit fair and explain to you why I think these best towns, or rather these towns are best when it comes to you growing yourself in terms of the wealth. All right, so enough with that. And by the way, these are the good news. I usually post a new video each and every day sharing with you opportunities where you can put your money and where you can be able to make money, as well as side hustles that you can be able to do. If you wouldn't love to miss any piece of my good video, do this. It is free and fast. It doesn't cost you anything. Just down below there on your right, there is a button written subscribe. It is in black. Then on the left, there is a like button. Hit those two magical buttons and guess what happens? You get to be notified whenever I upload a new good video. Alright, so enough with all that. Let's get into today's business. Now, what are these towns and what exactly do they post? But before I tell you exactly what are these towns, this is what I'm going to share with you. There are some towns in Kenya that they have the food availability. The food is in plenty, but money is not there. All right, you find like there is not much money in those specific towns. I'll give you an example, and with all the due respect to those towns, I happened to one day visit Bomet town. Bomet town is quite a wealthy town. It's one of the richest towns in Kenya, and actually in terms of account, it's very wealthy. But you find like when it comes to the money flow or circulation of money is quite low. There's the food is there, the cost of living is quite low, but the plenty of food is there, but money is not out there. All right. So anyway, I'm gonna start with the giant of all the towns and the best town in Kenya that you want to get yourself rich is none other than our capital, which is Nairobi, Kenya. Nairobi, Kenya, of course, by virtue or by default of it being a capital city, that means a lot of things have been congregated in those areas. Talk of almost every ministries, actually not almost every ministries in Kenya are in that specific town. So what does that exactly tell you? It tells you like actually by default it's actually the most populated town in our country. Actually, I should call even it a city. So the point is this: now in this specific city, people complain that life is expensive. That's for sure. Of course, whenever there is a high volume or high population of people, of course there are limited resources in terms of social amenities and such kind of things. But if you're smart enough to open your tentacles and spread them and tap the opportunities or create opportunities, then this is an area that you can be able to make money. There is this typical saying that people say, like, you can just wake up early in the morning in Nairobi without nothing in your pocket and go back in the evening with 10,000. The first you make money, also the same time, or the first rate at the way you consume that specific money. But if you were to open your eyes wider, you can realize one thing: there are some people who are favored by this specific town or this specific city, and there are people who find it rough to exist in this specific city. So what happened is this: those people who are smart and lucky, you have to have those two things. You must be smart, at the same time you must be lucky. Those who are smart and lucky surely make and tap opportunities, and they can actually grow themselves. Yes, this town I cannot tell you it's one of the cheapest town in Kenya. No, it is not. In terms of our cost of living, it's quite high, but the fact remains opportunities are out there. Why? Because population is there, and whenever you have high number of population, of course it means they need to have what we call the accommodation in terms of the shelter. They need to eat, they need to dress, they need to be transported from one point to the other, because one characteristics of human beings is that they migrate from one point to the other. So if you were to tailor around the opportunity based on those areas, and of course whenever there is high population, of course that tells you they need what we call medical care, medical attention. So if you're thinking of maybe starting yourself a pharmacy, you're thinking of starting yourself a dispensary, a hospital, a restaurant, a food business, or whatever, those kind of things, of course they resonate well. And I'm not saying that by default if you open you'll succeed. No, that is not the truth. The truth is this: of course you have to adhere to all the rules and regulation when it comes to you starting or operating a business. But the fact is this: whenever you hear there is a high population in the given country or county, then that tells you can make something at the end of the day. All right, so if you were to just sit like on top of a building and then see how busy these guys are, then it tells you at the end of the day these guys, they must to sleep somewhere, they have to eat, they have to dress, they have to be transported from one point to the other. If you can just see the opportunities out of that, then you can go ahead and tailor a business based on exactly that what you've seen and grow yourself to the next level. So Nairobi takes position number one in terms of the area of towns or cities whereby in Kenya that if you want to grow yourself rich, you can pick her up. But there's one thing I'll give as a disclaimer on this. You find that Some of the businesses that you can be able to start with 100K in Nairobi, you find like you can start a way bigger business maybe in a different town compared to that. Number one, you find some things are very expensive, like rental income, or rather rental expenses, like how much you need to pay for your rent in terms of your business. Of course, that one will be a bit high. The terms of transport as well is still high. That's why they say you can just wake up in the morning with 0 shillings and go to sleep with 10,000. So that's a reality and that's a fact. All right. So let's go to point number two. What is this next best town? So the next best town in Kenya that you can go ahead and start your business there, or you can migrate to, look at the opportunities and make money. You'll be shocked. This is Turkana. I have been in Turkana for 2 times, and I can tell you for sure. Yes, I know what you're thinking. For those who are in Kenya, they already know they are shocked on this list because they feel like that's a desert area, that's a semi-arid area, that's an area that is not even developed. That's for sure. It is developing, it is picking up. Would you imagine if I tell you Turkana County is the second county that usually gets a lot of money in terms of allocation in budgeting in Kenya? That's true. It is one of the county that receives highest amount of money next to Nairobi. So what does that tell you? It's an opportunity that has a lot of information, or rather a lot of opportunities lying there. It happens to be the county that Kenya discovered its oil. Well, I know maybe some things went by about the oil and we have never even seen it. But anyway, the point is this: it's a county that actually resonates well. If I have friends of mine who are operating as spare part businesses in those areas, people who are operating some clothing industries, people who are operating some food industry, because there's one thing that you should know. Yes, this area is not highly populated in terms of population, but there is one thing that makes this town be a unique town on its own. Number one, it has the second biggest refugee camp in our country. That is the Kakuma refugee camp. Of course, these guys, they have to eat. These guys, they are given money by the UN. These guys, they have actually to have all the social amenities and all those kind of things. Actually, also, Turkana happens to be at the border point of Kenya and South Sudan, as well as Ethiopia and what have you, that kind of a thing. So that cocktail of mixture of things makes this county to stand up in terms of making money. One thing that you're supposed to understand with this area: whenever you hear that a country or county or place is developing, then a lot of things are needed, like shelter, clothing, whatever, food, accommodation, residential, that kind of a thing. By the way, if those two guys are out there, you can see like government of Kenya, constructed a very nice road all the way from Kitale to, I think, Rokicha or whatever the place it is. They have a very nice road out there that connects with the South Sudan. And of course, I don't want to talk much about politics, but there's something they talked about, connecting the South Sudan with a certain port in Lamu or something of sort. It's like another second corridor of transport in Kenya, usually called the Lapset. I don't know if you guys you have ever heard of that kind of thing. So it's a place that actually lies or has a very great potential when it comes to you getting or making money out of that place. Yeah, I understand that it has some issues to do with securities and what have you, but anyway, if you just overlook that and go ahead and have yourself there, then you can be able to make money. All right. So the other point is this: I'm gonna just give you some other smaller ones before I go back to the major ones. Some places like Marla, some places like Wajir, some places like Mandera. You find these are places like, yes, they may appear a bit icky for those people who know the areas, but I'm telling you, those are the areas where the money is compared to other towns. Because number one, you find the competition is quite low. Number two, you find people are scared of going to these places. And number three, whenever you can manage to reach a product to that particular places, it can fetch like the highest profit and grow yourself to the next level. All right, so let's go to the next business opportunity, or rather the next point. And this one, I'm gonna summarize it in one way. I'm not gonna name like specific towns, but I'm gonna tell you like towns that are the borders of Kenya and other countries, especially the border points like the Sirare, that's the border with Kenya and Tanzania, the border point like of the Busia, that is the Kenya and Uganda. So those are the Moyale, that is the Kenya and Ethiopia. So that lies up to opportunities that you can be able to do business. You know why? Because of course, if you adhere to the rules of the regulation of the land or the two lands, then you can be able to import or export goods from either countries and be able to make money at the end of the day. So I had a lot of people usually go flock to Uganda to get the food products, bring them to Kenya, take some finished products like oils, the whatever, and the petroleum products, and take it to Uganda, because that actually does good when you take it to Uganda. And when you take the food products from Uganda, because obviously Uganda has more arable land than we do, then of course you find they have more food stability than we do. So migrating or exporting or rather importing food products from their country to ours, then that will fetch you a good amount of money. The same case applies to Tanzania. Of course, there is this a lot of things or grains that usually come from Tanzania to Kenya, and also those guys, they usually make a lot of money. So let's go back to our country now. So what are these towns again? Another town that I've actually personally lived there and I've actually schooled in that place for over 6 years is Kisumu. Kisumu, obviously, it is very expensive. That's for sure. You know why? Kisumu is not even surrounded by the farmers. Kisumu, they don't hardly do farming. All right. One thing that you should know that largely that what's happened there, it is the lakes about fishing and that kind of a thing. But the good thing with this amazing city is that they have an airport next to them. They have a whole big what we call the lake with them or for them, and of course it's a town that actually has the status of the city, and it's true, it is worthy to be called a city. I've lived in that specific place, but life is a little bit higher. By the way, I think it's a bit higher compared to Nairobi, and the good thing with this city is that if you can do the technology kind of a thing, then it can resonate well with you. Of course, population is out there. By default of a town to be called a city, definitely it means that the population has to reach a certain point for it to qualify to be called a city. So with no doubt, population is there and it's quite enough for you to do all your businesses that are out there. The other business that, or rather the other town that you can actually go ahead and do businesses are like of Busia. Busia is a good town. It's a border point whereby you can go ahead and start your own business out there. Or maybe if about opportunities of being employed there also are high, but not really quite high, I should say, because somebody from Busia would be like, hey, I've been looking job for an entire year, but I haven't seen any. Anyway, if you aren't lucky enough, does never happen. All right, so that's a point. So those are the areas that you can go ahead and actually start a business and grow yourself to the next level. Yeah, I know you guys, you're wondering and you're telling me, Joseph, why haven't you said about Mombasa? Yes, Mombasa, it's there. It's actually the second biggest city in Kenya. It's out there and you can be able to do your businesses, but I would suggest you concentrate on the Mombasa and the Malindi and what have you. But when it comes to Mombasa and the coastal kind of a thing, concentrate on the hospitalities, the services industry and that kind of a thing. All right, it's a little bit slow area, but if you can just go there, do things differently, then you can be able to make something at the end of the day. So but what I actually think it does good in Mombasa, it's about export or rather importation of, let's say, vehicles, petroleum products and such kind of things can actually do good in that specific area. So anyway guys, so those are just but few towns that you can be able to go ahead and start a business in Kenya. And of course there are other limited resources, but guess what, there are other isolated cases in some different towns that I haven't mentioned that you can actually go ahead and do good. Maybe you're out there watching this video and you hear that I haven't named any of your town that you usually live and you feel like I should have named it or included it. Just put it on the down comment section and tell me, hey, what other towns that you feel it is good for you and people can actually go there and make an opportunity. I decided to make this video for the sake of those guys who maybe they are foreigners, they would love to come to Kenya and invest, or maybe they would love to, get started somewhere or something, or maybe they're just Kenyans and they feel like anyway they're just concentrated on one area and they just open up and tell them, hey, you can just go and do some other things. All right, anyway, for now it's a goodbye, but don't forget to take my number from the description of this specific video. I offer consultation about businesses. I do have a lot of business plans ready for you. I do have investment booklets with me about money market funds, shares, what have you. You can get a copy for only 220. Of the business plan is only 280. For consultation, give me a call. Let's talk. Just for a cup of coffee, we get started. For now, it's a goodbye. See you there.